What the heck is up, guys? I feel like it's been an eternity, and it kind of has been. I really cannot remember the last time I did an audio commentary. I think it was my previous episode of Raw is Jerichoholic 8704, which that series died a painful, painful death, and I could give you a multitude of reasons as to why I haven't done jack shit since my top 10 Cruiserweight Classics video, which is still, a quality list that you should always check out. Nothing like a little self-plug. Anyway, guys, my name is Jerichoholic 8704, and welcome to Jerichoholic 8704's 2016 of WWE The Good, The Bad, and The Ugly. Wrestling in 2016 has had its fair share of craziness, some good, some bad, and some ugly. So I'm going to start writing down my list, of course, starting with the good, because we have to end with the negative stuff, because that's what gets me the most angry. So, starting off with the good, we have, in my opinion, the best part of 2016. I'm joking, it's not the best part of 2016. I'll get to that later. But let's talk about my man, the best wrestler of all time, Y2J, Chris Jericho. Chris Jericho has been on fire in 2016. So many great catchphrases, so many wonderful moments. He's gotten so much shit over. I mean, at this point, because I'm so late to everything, every YouTuber has said what everyone said. He got a clipboard over, he got the word it over, he got scarves over it. But I mean, the truth is, he did. He did get all that shit over. And all the stupid catchphrases, the drink it in, man, and the, stupid idiot. Like stupid idiot is like what a second grader calls another second grader after they steal their Legos. You know what I mean? Like, Jericho has done so much. And I mean, sure, his in-ring work, not what it used to be. Yes, we can all agree to that. And of course, I mean, Jericho's like 45, 46, you know what I mean? So you got to come a little bit of slack. And I mean, for a 45, 46-year-old, he's still really good. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, I'm not saying he's like Khali in there, you know what I mean? Not to dig at great Khali, I feel like that's beating a dead horse, but still, I feel like Chris Jericho, still had great matches. I mean, with AJ Styles, I mean, then again, it's impossible to have a bad match with AJ Styles. Granted, the year he's had and all the great stars he's made, and we'll get to AJ Styles in a bit. So, Jericho has been on fire. Everything he touches is gold. It's so funny. The only disappointment of Jericho in 2016 was that match he had with Ambrose at Extreme Rules, that Asylum match. Match was boring, but he took a fucking thumbtack spot, so, take that for what it's worth. But all the great Jericho moments, I mean, this is probably the funniest he's been. And I mean, let's be real here. Jericho, I would argue since 2012, really hasn't felt special. You know what I mean? Like, he came in those interim times. I mean, like in 2013, he had his run with Fandango. Like, whoopee, Fandango's now a fashion cop on SmackDown. But, Jericho really, he had that heel run in, 2012. And I mean, when Jericho kind of came back, there really wasn't a lot of hoopla to it. He had like a really weird segment with the New Day. And then he eventually turned heel on AJ after they formed their tag team for like 2 weeks. But I mean, that started the heel run. It kind of seemed like a return to the, slow, methodical, best in the world Jericho. And then eventually just the ball started rolling and he just started being more over the top, more ridiculous. And eventually, he was just on fire. And his thing with Kevin Owens, some of the funniest stuff, but in my opinion, the best Jericho moment ever was that it was that promo before Survivor Series where he just started running down everyone and he just completely roasted James Ellsworth. Like, he just called him out. When he called him Vince McMahon, I almost died. I fell out of my seat. Literally one of the best years of Jericho's career. Probably up there in terms of comedy, up there with like 1998 and 2000 when he was like on fire. But no, like seriously, he hasn't felt this relevant, this important in like 4 years when he was challenging for the WWE title at WrestleMania. But he still had some good matches to follow up with his great character and his great heel work. In terms of great matches and great in-ring work, it didn't get any better than AJ Styles, our next person on the good, bad, and ugly list. AJ literally defied all expectations. I mean, really, can you expect anything less from AJ Styles? He debuted in the Royal Rumble, and ever since then, literally on every pay-per-view he was on, I think he had the match of the night. It's really hard to argue against that. I'm thinking about it in my head right now, and I really can't imagine. I guess maybe Fastlane. I think the triple threat might have been better than him and Jericho, but him and Jericho was still, that might have been their best match, you know what I mean? But, he also had that really underrated match of 2016 was that tag team match he had with Jericho against New Day. That was a really awesome match. He had that fatal four-way on Raw. Both of his matches with Roman Reigns, especially the one at Extreme Rules, was awesome. His matches with Cena were great. He didn't have the best match of the night at Battleground. We can get to that. The best match of the night was clearly Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens, but, I digress. Backlash, he had a great match with Ambrose. He had that great triple threat. He had another great TLC match with Ambrose. And he had a good match with Ziggler on SmackDown over the summer. Like he was just on fire. He was just so good in every sense of the word. Literally every single person he was in the ring with, he made better. He made Roman Reigns look like the guy. He made him look like a star. It took AJ Styles 20 minutes to do what WWE has failed to do for the past 3 years, and that was get Roman Reigns over. You know what I mean? Like, people were eating that match up. It was fantastic. You know what I mean? It was just, it was incredible, and all of his in-ring work is just top notch. I mean, you really can't, like, people can say all the great wrestlers they have right now, Nakamura, Seth Rollins, like, and great tag team wrestlers, like Revival and Gargano and Ciampa and, all the great cruiserweights, Neville, Kota Ibushi when he's there, and all those guys like that. Like, sure, they're all great wrestlers that have been under the WWE umbrella, but really, AJ Styles is the best wrestler out of all of them right now. Mic work and all that shit, AJ is top notch. I mean, he really is. Like, at no point, I know AJ is not known for being a great mic worker, especially in his TNA days. But I mean, I really don't see any problem with AJ's mic work. I mean, sure, it kind of has like that southern twang to it that, Vince McMahon and Kevin Dunn seem to think is TV poison. But I mean, he still delivers on the mic and he still is entertaining. And just the whole face that runs the place, champ that runs the camp, all those ridiculous names, it makes me laugh and I enjoy it. I just enjoy AJ Styles on my TV. And I mean, he's like 40 years old. Or he's close to it. I don't know his exact age, but I mean, the level of performance he's putting on at this age is fantastic. I'm glad that WWE is milking him for all he's worth, especially when it's infuriating when you have guys like Samoa Joe and Shinsuke Nakamura who are, they're going to get older than they're going to get younger. You know what I mean? Like they're more old than young. And, they're just, sure, they had great matches in NXT, and sure, Nakamura is great in NXT, but you know what? Guys like that, they don't need this developmental. Samoa Joe is the best he's ever been. Shinsuke Nakamura, fucking amazing, charismatic as all hell, great in-ring worker. All these people need to be on the main roster because, God help us, the rosters are kind of thin on Raw and SmackDown. But in terms of overall character and heel work, you really can't get better than AJ and Jericho, but you can with The Miz. The Miz has also been one of the best heels of all time in 2016. I shouldn't say of all time. In 2016, Miz has been on fire. He is just it's almost weird. It's just like he's one of those big guys that benefited from this brand split. Even though this brand split kind of has been a little, wishy-washy. It's brought good and it's brought bad, but one of the good things is The Miz. I mean, granted, Miz was starting to kind of come into his own in the early parts of 2016. I think what really did it for him was Maurice coming back and being his manager. That really, really helped him. Maurice, adds such like this, very like cutting edge kind of like sexual vibe to Miz's character, if that makes sense. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, just like Maurice is really hot and everything. So that can piss fans off even more that this, narcissistic douche has this hot wife. You know what I mean? Like it adds to, the heel persona of The Miz. And I mean, in terms of Miz, we know he's not the greatest in-ring worker of all time, but that match he had with Dolph Ziggler at No Mercy was fucking unreal. And it's not, and like, it just goes to show that in wrestling, it's not always, how many flips you can do or how many, suplexes you can hit in a row and stuff like that. You just sometimes have to have a really good story and a really good personality that can suck people in. And sometimes a really big personality can mask your, somewhat limited moveset or very, safe in-ring style. You know what I mean? And the whole thing with Daniel Bryan, that's been amazing. You know what I mean? And just like everything he's done on Talking Smack, that one promo he cut, that's what really put him over the edge. He was kind of brewing, but that one episode of Talking Smack where they kind of did like that worked shoot thing where Daniel Bryan walked off and he stared right into the camera and started talking about how he's the Intercontinental Champion and all that shit. That's what made The Miz, to me, stand out above everyone else in the roster. I mean, he was the hottest thing in wrestling for like a week. Now, sure, it's only a week, but still, that's all people were talking about for that solid week. And I mean, in the age of Broken Matt Hardy and all this other shit going on with TNA and all the other big wrestling news and the Cruiserweight Classic and all that shit. To have people talk about you specifically for just a week is still a big deal. And I mean, in 2016, everything's moving a lot faster. It's not like they had the Talking Smack show and then they were off TV for 3 weeks. You know what I mean? The Miz was making another appearance the next week on SmackDown. But for that 1 week, people were interested in The Miz. And he was able to snowball that into a bunch of great matches with Dolph Ziggler where the in-ring work, if you sucked out the personalities, the in-ring work might give you a decent match. But because there was all that drama there that The Miz was able to create for himself, it really added to the match. So to me, The Miz was probably the best male heel of the year. In terms of best heel, I might have to give it to Charlotte because this has been a great year for her and women's wrestling altogether. Finally, the only good thing, in my opinion, to come out of WrestleMania 32, and I'm joking when I say that because were a few good things, but we're going to get to WrestleMania 32 in a bit. They finally got rid of that stupid butterfly belt, and they gave us the women's championship back. Well, it's actually not. It's technically not the women's championship. It's the WWE women's championship, as opposed to the women's championship, which is what, Trish and Lita and Ivory and Fabulous Moolah and all the other women held. This is a new title, and the first champion, Charlotte, was crowned at WrestleMania in a very good triple threat match. I think it was a very, very good match. Probably the match of the night, in all honesty. That or the ladder match. But it was actually very, very good for women this year. They main evented Raws. They main evented a pay-per-view. They main evented Hell in a Cell in the first ever women's Hell in a Cell match. I believe that was the first one, right? I mean, that's all they talked about. They're making history. That's one of my pet peeves is how WWE has to tell me that they're making history. You can mention it once and say, like, at the beginning of the match, like, this is the first time ever that women have main evented in a Hell in a Cell or something like that. You can drop those statistics all you want. Sure, that's great and everything. And it's great that you're recognizing it. But when you constantly bash over the fact that, oh, these women are making history, I kind of lose interest. I'm like, well, like, can't they, like, the whole point of this is for the women to be equal to the men, right? So I don't think it's really a great idea to make such a big deal out of a woman main eventing Raw. It should just be a common thing because they should be elevated stars like the men to the point where them coming out in the main event shouldn't surprise the fans at all. You know what I mean? And again, it's fine if you want to say this is the first ever women's Hell in a Cell match. Totally fine if you want to say that. Or you can kind of spin it. This is the first women's match. I'm sorry, this is the first Hell in a Cell match for the women's championship. You know what I mean? I just think when they bash, like WWE does this all the time, they just bash your head over with shit. It gets to the point where you're like, okay, I get it. And then it just gets annoying after a while. And then it kind of takes you out of it for a bit. If they just would just ease off on the statistics and, the fans get it. If you've been watching WWE for over 3 years, you realize that the women have come a very, very, very long way. I mean, back in 2010, we had Eve Torres versus Kelly Kelly in a 5-minute match, second match on the card in a pay-per-view. And now we have Charlotte and Sasha Banks in the main event of Hell in a Cell, defending the title in a Hell in a Cell match. Something unheard of. You had an Iron Woman match where Sasha Banks bled all over the place. Granted, I know that wasn't planned, but still, it added so much to the match. My point is, women have come a long way. Charlotte has really led this division. She's been such a great heel. She's been at the forefront of all the great matches, you know what I mean? And Sasha Banks, I kind of have my problems with Sasha Banks in terms of her bumping because sometimes it just looks like she's trying to kill herself for the sake of having a good match when really, I mean, look at The Miz and Dolph Ziggler. You can have a good match without trying to do the craziest shit in the world. And sometimes I get kind of mad when Sasha Banks goes out there and tries to, like, just flop all over the place like a rag doll, risking her body, risking herself for the sake of the match when really she didn't need to do that from the beginning. If she just did what she was told, like if she did what she was taught to do and trusted herself, because Sasha Banks is a great wrestler. If she trusted herself and, trusted her own personal skills instead of trying to, overachieve and do all these crazy bumps for the sake of doing crazy bumps, I think she'd have a lot more success if she just followed her instincts and did, the right thing to do in a wrestling ring, which isn't, to oversell and shit like that. You know what I mean? So, I have my problems with Sasha Banks, but you know what? She's been great. She's won the women's championship, I believe, 3 times. All the matches that Sasha Banks and Charlotte had have all been great. That False Count Anywhere match they had where Sasha Banks won the title, which did that Banks statement, like she bent Charlotte's back over the guardrail, like that was awesome. So many great moments for them, and really they've been the forefront. I mean, in NXT, Asuka has been tearing it up. She won the NXT title in NXT Dallas, where she defeated Bayley, who was a great women's champion. Mickie James came back, and that was awesome. And she's coming back. She's coming back to SmackDown, I believe. I don't know. Maybe I made that up. I know she's coming to the main roster. And then in terms of SmackDown, Becky Lynch won the SmackDown Women's Championship. Alexa Bliss is the current champ, and they just had a really good match on SmackDown where Alexa Bliss popped her own arm back in. That was disgusting. I don't know if she's double jointed or what. Point is, if she is double jointed and she can just, bend her arm back like that, more power to her. You should do that. You should save that for a couple high profile matches, Alexa, because that can really fucking work. Don't do it every week when it becomes your gimmick and then it gets killed, but save it maybe 2 years from now, pull that out again, because that was one hell of a moment, and I remembered that match. I remembered that thing more than that was the one spot I remembered from that SmackDown more than anything. So definitely hold on to that. I have to interject here because I actually forgot to mention this individual I really didn't know what section to put him in, to be totally honest with you. Goldberg. I totally forgot to mention Goldberg. I did this entire 45-minute recording and I completely forgot to mention Goldberg. Now, I can't really comment too much on Goldberg because the Royal Rumble is yet to happen and a lot of implications about Goldberg will be answered at the Royal Rumble. But I will say, in terms of his return, in terms of all the theatrical stuff and all the hoopla surrounding his return, I thought it was really, really good. I really enjoyed his return promo. It was so great seeing Goldberg again. I mean, I'm a huge Goldberg fan. I had rarely seen Goldberg, on Raw. He had that brief run in 0304, and I was watching around that time. It's just, I never really got to see Goldberg, come back and actually have drive and passion because, his WWE run wasn't really all that great. But, it was cool to see him come back and have his gear and do his entrance and all that shit. So then he gets in the ring with Brock Lesnar, and then we have probably the biggest shocker of the year. Goldberg beats Brock Lesnar in a minute, 90 seconds? I can't remember what the exact time off the top of my head. But still, people had their jaws completely on the floor. People were shocked at what they saw. And my thing is, yes, I understand, it was a 90-second, they built it so much for that. But it's here's the thing. At the end of the day, I guess that's one of the best scenarios you could have gone with. I mean, I guess the best case scenario is if you don't want Brock to lose, because that's the complaint. Oh, Brock, he beat all these people, he ended the streak, and then he lost to a 50-year-old guy in 5 seconds. You know what I mean? I get that complaint, I really do. But at the end of the day, this is what WWE booked themselves into. It really wasn't the worst case scenario. I mean, you could have had Brock Lesnar completely destroy Goldberg in a minute, and that might have been fine too. It would have proved that Brock is dominant, and maybe for the long run that's the better option. But I mean, they're not going to have Goldberg come in with this big contract just to lose in 5 seconds. You know what I mean? That being said, the fact that there probably will be a WrestleMania rematch, they're both in the Royal Rumble, they'll probably collide there, they'll probably eliminate each other, and they'll probably have a match at WrestleMania that Brock will probably win because, Goldberg is 2-0 against him. That will probably happen, so it'll probably make amends for the really short match in Survivor Series, but in the end, I feel like this accomplished more good than evil, you know what I mean? That's why I'm putting it in the good category as opposed to the bad or the ugly. Granted, it does have bad and ugly elements thrown in it. But I mean, if this was a 20-minute match, this could have sucked. How much can Goldberg really do? Now, granted, maybe we'd rather see a fight, just fist fights or them tackling each other for maybe even 5 minutes. It would have been fine. And I bet at WrestleMania they might do a street fight, a no holds barred kind of match. I'm sure that'll be better. But, for what we got right now and for, the initial wow factor it had on people, I really can't say it was that bad. It was fine. I thought Goldberg did well, and especially that return promo. I mean, sure, Goldberg kind of had some blunders when he, fell when he was trying to attack Brock Lesnar on Raw and stuff like that. But overall, I thought Goldberg in 2016 was more good than bad. It definitely could have been worse. My final good, and that is probably the best thing WWE did all year, and we all know what the best thing WWE did was. It was the Cruiserweight Classic. Raw, SmackDown, NXT. I love those shows. Even though Raw fucking infuriates me, I love all of those shows. But sometimes, at least once a month, there's a week where I'm just ugh, I don't feel like watching Raw. I don't feel like, I don't feel like watching SmackDown, or I don't feel like watching NXT, and sometimes I don't. I usually watch Raw every week. I usually watch SmackDown every week. Sometimes I usually watch NXT maybe 3 weeks out of the month, sometimes 2, depending on how busy I am. I mean, shit, during the school year, I hardly watch anything. When I have the chance to, is what I'm saying. But, it's just, it got to the point where I'm just I just really don't feel like watching this stuff, especially in the fall. But the Cruiserweight Classic, I never ever was like, I don't feel like watching the Cruiserweight Classic this week. This show was so good, not only because you had the best cruiserweights putting on the best matches, some of the best matches of the whole year, but all the different stories they threw in, they can make you love someone in an instant. You know what I mean? The best example is Brian Kendrick, and I mean, when Brian Kendrick was in WWE back in like, '08, like, he was fine. I'm like, oh, he's the Brian Kendrick. I really didn't care too much for him. When he was coming back, I was like, oh, cool, Brian Kendrick. But when I saw his story and just the whole overall presentation, it just seemed like such a love letter to the diehard fans. They were treating it like it's like that whole like preliminary thing they did before the actual matches took place. They were treating it like it was an actual competition. You know what I mean? Like it was so, professional, and they took it seriously. And the fact is, it had so much going for it. There were so many great stories, so many guys to get behind. You know what I mean? And so many great thing was there's no way you knew every single person going in unless you're like the super fan and you just knew everyone from beginning to end. But there were tons of guys in this that I had never even heard of. Jack Gallagher, that was one, and I was so impressed with him. And I just loved like discovering new talent. You know what I mean? New things to watch, new guys to look out for, new guys to follow. And sure, there were the names we already knew, like Cedric Alexander, Kota Ibushi, Zack Sabre Jr., and guys like those. The guys who made it to the end. Well, Cedric Alexander, not so much, but still. And Cedric Alexander probably had the best moment of the whole Cruiserweight Classic when he lost that match to Kota Ibushi, and they were chanting like "Please sign Cedric" or something like that, and Triple H just kind of grabbed him, put his arm over him, and just said, "Yeah, you got it." That was a great moment. I loved everything about the Cruiserweight Classic. The finale was probably the best 2 hours of WWE television I had seen, not only in 2016 but in years, probably since like WrestleMania 30. You know what I mean? Just like some of the best, most emotional. Just oh god, it was so great. And T.J. Perkins, I thought was a great winner. I thought it was a great choice for a winner. And I mean, everyone was expecting someone like Zack Sabre Jr. or Kota Ibushi, but because, maybe it was because they didn't sign or anything like that. But TJ Perkins, I thought, he always showed up in his matches. He always had great matches. And I thought, that match he had with Kota Ibushi, where Kota Ibushi tapped out, you could feel I don't want to say like disappointment. That's not necessarily the word I'm looking for, but just the shock of the fans at when Kota Ibushi tapped out to that knee bar. Everyone kind of just collectively went like, what the hell? Like, oh my God, TJ Perkins is going to the finals. I thought it was just a really great tournament. The best tournament, not like just the best tournament in WWE history, bar none. And you got to expect the excitement everyone had when they said the Cruiserweights are coming to Raw with the new Cruiserweight title that TJ Perkins won in the inaugural Cruiserweight Classic, which takes us to the bad. We're done with the good. We're going into the bad. The Cruiserweight division on Raw. Brian Alvarez made a really interesting parallel. He was saying how the women are tearing it up right now, but you know what really sucked when it first started? The women's revolution. When they were bashing it over, everyone said, this is the era of the female athlete. Apparently in 2015, women are now starting to, perform in sports, when really that had been happening for decades. So, I think it's kind of similar here. Like WWE thinks they know what they're doing with the cruiserweights, and they really didn't know what made the cruiserweight Classic special, because now they're on the main roster where they don't give these guys the backstories that they gave them in the Cruiserweight Classic. You know what I mean? If they kind of set it up like the Cruiserweight Classic, maybe they could have a little bit more success. And they created 205 Live, which, in all honesty, I will be 100% honest with you guys, I've only seen a little bit of 205 Live. The only exposure I have to 205 Live, it's not because I don't want to watch it. It's just because I've been busy. The only exposure I had to 205 Live was this past week's, when we had Neville and Rich Swann in the main event. And I wanted to watch that because, one, this heel turn with Neville this might be that little, pick, that steam that the Cruiserweight division needed. And that might be the turn for the Cruiserweight division, is this whole Neville thing, because he turned heel and he just lit the entire division up. You know what I mean? Like, everyone's talking about Neville. Everyone loves Neville. And I think if you get that title on Neville, you can really build that division around him, have a lot of challengers come in. I know Monster pitched Kota Ibushi versus Neville at WrestleMania. I doubt that's going to happen. I don't see that happening at all, actually. But I think that could be a great match. I think that would be an awesome idea. And I'd love to see, Neville, they've been kind of popcorning that Cruiserweight Championship around, which I don't necessarily mind, because that might be its gimmick. Like, every 3 or 4 weeks, a new guy gets it. But I think Neville holding that title as a heel for 6 months, damn, that could be amazing television. And my whole disappointment with 205 Live was it kind of has SmackDown syndrome, where I feel like there's not a whole lot of reason to watch it. They don't really like do anything to entice you to watch it. And I remember watching. I missed like the ring introductions for Neville and Rich Swann. I came back into my room the moment they started their match, so I was watching it, and Neville got the pinfall victory, as we all know. And I was like, oh shit, they're going to put the title on Neville. And then I heard, I think it was like Graves, he was like, Neville's pinned the Cruiserweight champion. And then because of that little language that WWE uses, I realized that it was a non-title match. I was like, are you shitting me? It's a non-title match? I mean, granted, it's my own fault for not realizing that. But still, I was like, shit, I didn't know it was a non-title match. I thought I'd actually seen a title change. So I feel like 205 Live has that danger of becoming, SmackDown 2.0, where it's like, just a bunch of recaps and a bunch of matches. Now, granted, I know they don't show recaps on that show, but I mean, and granted, I really haven't given 205 Live a lot of a chance, not just mainly because I haven't had the time to. But other than that, it's been all right. There's really nothing to write home about. The magic of the Cruiserweight Classic is lost in the Cruiserweight division, and it doesn't make sense that they're on Raw. You feel like they should be on SmackDown, but I mean, granted, Raw needs all the help they can get. And SmackDown has had their hands full with another Cruiserweight, that being James Ellsworth. Now, here's the thing. I feel bad for putting James Ellsworth in the bad category because I like James Ellsworth. I really, really, really do. My main problem with James Ellsworth is the overexposure. It's WWE to the finest degree taking a joke too fucking far. You know what I mean? And I compare this a lot. I always use this comparison. The South Park episode, the Pokemon parody, Chin Pokemon. The way that the parents stop, the kids from liking Chin Pokemon is them liking it themselves. So like, oh yeah, we're joining in. I got this Pokemon, stuff like that. You know what I mean? And it's the whole like, oh, our parents like it, now I don't want to like it anymore. WWE uses this little principle to a T. You know what I mean? The worst, like we saw it with Fandango. Remember how Fandango kind of became like a cult classic? Everyone would do the dance, everyone would sing his theme. It was kind of like a fun fan thing to do. And then WWE was like, send us your videos of you Fandangoing. And it instantly became uncool. You know what I mean? Same thing with James Ellsworth. Ellsworth kind of had like a little cult following because he was a funny looking guy that got killed by Braun Strowman. And was James Ellsworth the guy who was like I can't remember if this was him or not. You can correct me if I'm wrong, but like there was definitely a time, unless I'm making this shit up, which I doubt. They interviewed one of the guys facing Braun Strowman, and the guy was like, "I like big, greasy, hairy men," or something like that. Like he said something like that. I can't remember if that was Ellsworth or not. If it was, that might have been what got him over. But the point is, all these, the guys that came in to get squashed by Braun Strowman were just completely ridiculous. And Ellsworth was the most ridiculous looking of them all, and everyone just kind of liked him, you know what I mean? And I mean, I will give James Ellsworth credit. This was just an independent guy. I listened to his interview on Talk is Jericho. He's from like the Baltimore area, so, hometown hero for me. But like, he was just an independent guy. He'd do bunch of these small shows, but he has himself a WWE contract now, and I'm sure he's not being paid, the mega millions that John Cena is. But I mean, he has a steady job now. I mean, I'm sure being an independent wrestler, I'm sure if you love wrestling and you're an independent wrestler, I'm sure you're living out your dream. But it can't be the most stable job in the world. You know what I mean? I mean, sure, you probably have steady gigs. But, at a second, that shit can fall through. I mean, at least he's employed by WWE, who will probably not go out of business for a very, 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 very long time, if you know what I mean. So I will give Ellsworth credit for that. And I do like him. It's just WWE throwing him in with, like, if they made him Dean Ambrose's little stooge, like they made him his little buddy, kind of like the Hornswoggle to his Finley, like, sure, fine, whatever. But the fact that, like, he's challenging for championships, and he's doing this heel turn in TLC and knocking Dean Ambrose off a ladder and interfering in WWE championship matches, and he has pinfall. Like, no, he doesn't have a pinfall victory. He just has dubious victories over AJ Styles, who's the guy that beat John Cena. I mean, you'd think WWE would not want that to happen. The guy that beats John Cena probably should be unbeatable, except for the guy who weighs 150 with no chin. You know what I mean? So it just, the concept of James Ellsworth just completely baffles me, just because I can't imagine WWE would want something like that. The people who are so opposed to all the little guys and everything, they're really taking a liking to James Ellsworth. And again, I don't dislike James Ellsworth, and I think he's fine. It's just his overexposure just led to his overall downfall. Like, no one really cares about James Ellsworth anymore. And I mean, he's out of the main event picture, yes, but God forbid you just keep him there for just, oh my God. Like, I'm done with James Ellsworth, as is everyone else. He can be great he can be like the new Santino, great comedy spots and stuff like that. But other than that, we don't need him anywhere else. Finally, my other bad thing, which I won't touch on too long, but Balor's injury. I'm not blaming Seth Rollins like most fans are. I shouldn't say most. Only some stupid idiot fans who think Seth Rollins has a vendetta against him and Sting. Look, it wasn't on purpose. It was an accident. Yada yada yada. Point is, Balor's injury was just bad in the sense that it totally derailed his momentum. I feel so sorry for Finn Balor because he comes in with all this hoopla. They put him over as this mega star in that first Raw after Battleground. He looked like such a monster. He looked like a great man. You know what I mean? Like, he just looked so awesome, and they looked like they were really going for him. They give him the first Universal title, and he just goes down with an injury the next day. Completely derails his momentum. I hope he's 100% when he comes back. My other pet peeve when it comes to Finn Balor is, again, it's WWE trying to make their own fucking things when they don't need to. How they refer to him as Finn Balor, the Demon King. Like, I hate that. I hate that. I will get, I'm probably going to make a biggest pet peeves in wrestling part 3 that might be coming up soon. That's definitely going to be on the list, and I will go into more detail about that. Let's get into the ugly. So finally, we have the ugly, and our first ugliness of the year is WrestleMania 32. Now, I don't think WrestleMania 32 was a bad show. I think it was a very, very long show and a very, very anticlimactic show. If you look at this match in a vacuum and you just play the matches back to back to back to back to back, you're going to have a very solid show with a disappointing main event. I thought the ladder match was really good. I thought, Jericho and Styles was really good. The women's triple threat was really, really good. Other than that, you didn't have anything too spectacular on there. Shane and The Undertaker had a crazy moment, but the match was kind of boring. That 6-man tag, kind of a waste of time. And, other things like Ryback and Kalisto in the pre-show. What? You know what I mean? It just seemed like for a WrestleMania in AT&T Stadium, which, they're saying it was 101,000. Again, I know that's not the real number, yada, 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 whatever. I don't care what the real number was. The point is WWE is building this as the most attended WrestleMania. This was the biggest WrestleMania of all time. Their golden boy went in against their other golden boy in the main event. And it just wasn't like, I just didn't feel anything, you know what I mean? It was too fucking long. That was the problem. That's my big problem with a lot of WWE programming. Survivor Series is 4 hours. Now that Royal Rumble is in the Alamo Dome, that's probably going to be 4 hours. You know what I mean? WrestleMania was almost 5 hours long. We had that Rock segment that went on way too long. Sure, him facing Rowan was a funny moment. But God, they didn't need that moment to be 30 fucking minutes long. John Cena coming back, cool moment, but again, it was kind of coupled in with that Rock segment. Didn't need to be as long as it was. Triple H's Triple H's entrance was one of the most over-the-top, ridiculous things I've ever seen in my life. I know a lot of people like that entrance. I'm never a big fan of the, super over-the-top entrances. You know what I mean? I know wrestling showmanship and all that. And I mean, I do enjoy the theatrical side of it. I am a theater major after all, but still. Remember, Shawn Michaels at WrestleMania 25 coming down from the rafters? I was fine with that. But when you have Stephanie McMahon giving this, fucking monologue, saying how awesome Triple H is, I'm just like, okay. Now, maybe he's doing his job because he's a heel and I'm supposed to hate him. I didn't hate Triple H at that moment. I just hated his wife for talking for so long. And all these people coming out it seems so over the top, and I was kind of just sick of it. Especially, you probably don't want to have a super long, drawn-out entrance when you've been watching a show for 4.5 hours. At that point, I'm like, just get in the fucking ring and get this match going. You know what I mean? It's a huge problem, though. You don't want your audience to, want you to hurry up the main event. The only pop the main event ever got was when Stephanie McMahon got speared, and that was because WWE has built Stephanie McMahon up as the most dominant heel in WWE. You know what I mean? So Roman Reigns finally speared her, and the place went fucking insane because she wasn't going to slap him afterwards. So, it's been one hell of a crazy year, and WrestleMania 32 left a lot to be desired. Not to mention Seth, we'll get to him in a second, Shane McMahon and Undertaker, that was kind of underwhelming, you know what I mean? And not only was the match underwhelming, I mean, sure, Shane McMahon almost died. Yes, whippy. But, he didn't really look all that great in the match. The match kind of came out of nowhere. And the whole story, the whole point of this was if Shane McMahon lost, he was going to have to go away forever. And if Undertaker lost, he was going to have to go away forever. And Shane McMahon lost to The Undertaker. And then the next day, he was like, all right, Vince was like, all right, you're running Raw. And then all of a sudden, he's the commissioner of SmackDown. And Undertaker went away forever until eventually he came back. But still, it's just like the storyline made no sense. And it seemed like, for a big WrestleMania match, there was zero payoff to it. The only thing WrestleMania 32 really accomplished was it got the women's division off to a good start with that new women's title match and that great triple threat match. And sure, they gave Baron Corbin the Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal trophy. And just recently, on that last episode of SmackDown, when they had that triple threat with him, Corbin, Ziggler, and Styles, they announced Baron Corbin as the winner of the Andre Battle Royal. And I was like, oh shit, I'd totally forgotten that. But other than that, like, no real new star was put over. I mean, Jericho beat AJ Styles, and sure, AJ Styles didn't really suffer too much from that loss, but you really have to wonder, why did he have to beat him? I mean, Jericho could lose to a 2x4, and Jericho could still be over, so I don't know why he had to win. Zack Ryder won the Intercontinental Championship, and sure, that was a great feel-good moment, but you know what? At that point, I'm like, who cares about Zack Ryder anymore? You know what I mean? And sure, and it's not like WWE did this whole, like, redemption storyline with him anyway. Like, he's back to being, just hype bro number 2, you know what I mean? Like, he's just in a tag team with Mojo Rawley, who's the most annoying superstar of all time. I mean, and it's just like, you could have given that to Sami Zayn. You could have given that to Kevin Owens. Or maybe you could have just had Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn in a ladder match at WrestleMania. Maybe that would have been a little better. I mean, Dolph Ziggler, Miz, and Stardust, and Sin Cara, you know what I mean? Like, it just, those people, like, maybe they didn't need to be in that match at all. Granted, I know I just gave all the praise in the world to The Miz earlier in this video, but still, by the time of WrestleMania 32, I really wasn't feeling him too much. And then one wrestler who really didn't get to shine a lot at WrestleMania 32 was Seth Rollins because he was injured. He came back at Extreme Rules. And Seth Rollins, I put just Seth Rollins in general in the ugly category because it's not necessarily that Seth Rollins has been bad this year. I just think WWE has fucked Seth Rollins up so much in 2016. Here's the deal. This WWE 24 special comes out the moment he returns. And Seth Rollins looks like the most likable person of all time in this special. How could you hate this guy after all the shit he's been through? You know what I mean? Like, he just came across as like the ultimate good guy and the ultimate redemption story. You know what I mean? And like, he was sitting in that skybox at WrestleMania 32 so angry that he couldn't be down there doing what he loves. And then he comes back as a heel, and sure, I know he was a heel when he left. But sometimes you just have to roll with it. You sometimes just have to call a fucking audible. When he came back, like when he attacked Roman Reigns, and I don't think this was just attacking Roman Reigns. I bet if AJ Styles won that match and Seth Rollins came back and attacked him, people would have still cheered. Maybe they wouldn't have cheered as loud because, again, Roman Reigns is the most hated man in the world. But when he came back and attacked him, people cheered. And when he came back the next night on Raw, people were going insane. It's like sometimes you just have to roll with it. If he came back and he was booed, go with the heel thing, sure. But he came back and he was cheered. People loved him. People wanted to see more Seth Rollins. So just let him be a face. But no, they had to have him be a heel first. And they had to do this weird face turn where, he loses the title to Dean Ambrose, and then he's angry about it, and then it slowly morphs, and then by the time SummerSlam rolls around, he's facing Finn Balor, and he's still a heel, and then what was it, by Night of Champions, or Clash of Champions, I should say, he's a face. And just, Seth Rollins is the most awkward babyface of all time. I'm not saying he would have been awkward had he been a babyface when he returned. I feel like, because like that face, promo he cut the night after he came back, that was really good. But what they're doing now is they're trying to make him be like the rambunctious, acid tongue kind of face, kind of like how Jericho was in 2001. I think that's the direction they're trying to go with Seth Rollins, but I feel like Seth Rollins could be a more of like a beats to his own drum kind of babyface. You know what I mean? Not the asshole-ish, acid tongue kind of babyface. Like some of the things he said, like the sparkle crotch, that was the most cringiest moment of the year for me. When I saw that, I almost died. You know what I mean? It was so are we in third grade? I mean, sure, Jericho got stupid idiot over, but that's because he's Chris Jericho. When you have the awkward delivery of Seth Rollins calling him Sparkle Crotch with that weird laugh he does, it just came across as so phony and so fake and so like manufactured. You know what I mean? He just has been so awkward this year. I can't get behind Seth Rollins. I still love him. I mean, he's still a great wrestler, probably one of the best wrestlers he's had. He's had great matches. But in terms of like a best of 2016, if you did like the top 10 wrestlers of 2016, I don't know how you could put Seth Rollins on that list because he's done nothing of note. He really hasn't. I'm sure he's been in great matches, yeah, but like at no point was I interested in him. They killed any interest I had for him the next night on Raw after he came back when they turned him heel. It was just like he's back to doing the same old shit he was doing. And when he was a heel in late 2015, what was he doing? He was a horrible WWE champion at that point. He was just losing constantly. He looked like a little bitch every single day. When he went back to the old Seth Rollins, I was just like, oh great, we're back to the old Seth Rollins who constantly loses and just runs away from fights and isn't courageous, like I saw in the WWE 24 special. So it's like, why would you not run with that? So that was what I hated from Seth Rollins. And then in terms of the ugly, I have two final things. One, the Universal title. That is one ugly piece of shit. And finally, Raw in 2016. So the reason I kind of hate the brand split is because, sure, SmackDown is thriving. Sure, SmackDown is making do with what they have. But Raw really needs all the help they can get. It's a 3-hour show, and sometimes it is just unbearable to watch. And it's not because, oh, you're not a true fan. Like, oh, you don't understand wrestling. Like, no, it's just 3 hours of wrestling, and it's just too much. If they made Raw 2 hours, I guarantee you Raw, it might not be the greatest show in the world, but it's going to feel a lot better than 3 hours of wrestling. It gets old. And I mean, sure, there's great moments of Raw. There's great people on Raw, like Jericho, Owens, Rollins when he's not being an idiot and he's in the ring wrestling. Reigns has been good this year. You know what I mean? I feel like Roman Reigns has really improved. And you can see that on Raw. It's just some of the stupid comedy skits they do, some of the decisions they make, and how they book their show to show the audience that matches aren't important. It's not who wins and loses that matters. It's who has the best catchphrase. Now, granted, I know catchphrases have their place in wrestling. Personalities have their place in wrestling. But at the end of the day, it's a wrestling show, and I want to see competition. And there is no competition on Raw. SmackDown is a much more competitive show. That is the defining line between Raw and SmackDown. SmackDown actually has competition. That whole SmackDown, the last SmackDown of 2016 revolved around that whole wild card thing. There were 3 title matches. Those were the only 3 matches on SmackDown as far as I can remember. I'm pretty sure they were. But those 3 matches were all championship matches that felt important. On Raw, I can't take any championship match seriously. On Raw, they blow their main events a month before it happens. You know what I mean? Like, how many times have we seen Roman Reigns and Kevin Owens? How many times has Roman Reigns beaten Kevin Owens? And yet Kevin Owens is still the WWE Universal Champion? Like, I really can't take anything seriously on Raw. Now, granted, that's been a problem with WWE for a while. You can't take anyone seriously because wins, losses, who cares? That's the motto of WWE. But still, I just can't take Raw seriously. It's 3 hours of torture. It's so hard to watch, and it's so embarrassing. I'm an RA on my college campus. Residents come into my room all the time to talk to me if they have problems or anything. And on Monday nights, when they come in and see wrestling, they're like, oh, no, this is that WWE stuff. John Cena, duh. I'm just so embarrassed. You know what I mean? Like, it's just so embarrassing when you see, like, Enzo Amore, like, just going into Lana's hotel room and stuff like that. Or, that actually wasn't so... That was just stupid, but that wasn't, like, horrendously stupid. What was stupid was that one time where Lana sent him a risque picture and it was just a picture of her face. Like, that was stupid. That was like, really? Like, I understand it's a PG show, but he maybe didn't have to show his phone to the camera. But still, I am getting way off topic here. And I can tell because it's a 40-minute video. Jesus Christ, I was trying to make this 20, but well, look what happens when you start talking about the bad and the ugly. Anyway, Raw in 2016, I don't see it improving, unfortunately. And sure, it's had great moments. Daniel Bryan's retirement that happened in 2016 was probably the best moment of Raw, and probably like one of the best segments in Raw history, one of the best promos in Raw history. And you know what? Throw Daniel Bryan's retirement in the good and in the bad and in the ugly, because it's a combination of all 3, because it was so painful, but it was so nice to see. And that 24 special they did, it moved me to tears. It was so emotional and it was so great. But still, Raw overall in 2016 is just, it's painful to watch, and they had good Raws. That Raw after Battleground where they made Finn Balor a star in one night, amazing. And I know not every Raw can be like that, but if they kind of made a Raw similar to that, where it's like you build it around one guy and maybe show their progression throughout the night. I'll tell you one of my favorite Raws was of the year. Not mainly like top to bottom Raw, but that one Raw where New Day was going to break Demolition's record. I didn't think it was the greatest Raw in the world, but I liked the story. Like maybe if they went into every Raw with a story of one wrestler, they followed one wrestler around and kind of showed their progression throughout the night. That can get people interested, because when New Day was going to defend, they defended their titles in the opening match, but then they had to defend their titles in the main event, and it was like, oh, they're going to break Demolition's record? It's shit like that can make Raw watchable. You know what I mean? It doesn't make it automatically great, but it can at least give it some sort of form, some sort of purpose, which is what Raw greatly lacks. So that's my problem with Raw in 2016. It greatly lacks any sort of direction, any sort of form, any sort of purpose. And that's what I want out of WWE in 2017. That is it for me. I will try to get as I really wish I can get a lot of videos to you guys, but the truth is, the semesters are just very busy, especially now that I'm an RA. All my, planning and all my creativity goes into making events for my residents and stuff like that. And it's not that I don't have time for videos. It takes a lot of energy to, talk like this for 45 minutes about, shit I hate and shit I love about WWE in 2016. And I really wish I can get videos out to you. I'll try harder, but it's going to be a very busy month, and very busy month. It's going to be a very busy semester, so a very busy next 4 months. It's really hard to do, and I really, really want to do it as much as I can. Like, I really love, making videos on YouTube. I love giving out my thoughts, because granted, there's not a lot of people I can give my thoughts to on wrestling besides like my brother, who's definitely tired of listening to me talk about why I hate WWE. But it's really what I love doing. It's just, I have just a lot of shit to do, and I gotta get, I have to have my priorities in straight. I gotta make sure all my classes are great. I got that 3.6 average, so I gotta make sure I keep that up. But, other than that, I really want to give some more videos out. Hopefully I can get some videos out before the semester starts, maybe my top matches of 2016 and shit like that. But other than that, I appreciate all of you for listening. I appreciate all of you who haven't, abandoned me for not making a video for 4 months. I really appreciate all of you guys, and I really am glad that you guys listened to this video for 45 minutes, or if you just kind of skipped around and to listen to my voice. But at this point, I'm losing it. I'm rambling. I haven't been kind of sick, and my throat's been kind of clogged, so if I do sound kind of sick, I apologize. But I will see all of you later, because I am rambling, and I need to end this video. So I am Jared Clark 874, and I will see all of you later.